Magandang araw! Ngayon ipag-uusapan natin ang Data Privacy Act of 2012. Ito ay isang batas sa Pilipinas na nagsasabi na mahalaga ang personal na impormasyon ng bawat tao at ito ay dapat na pangalagaan at protektahan. Ako si Lilet Kapimpin, ang Data Protection Officer ng San Pablo College's Medical Center.
In 2012, the Philippines passed the Data Privacy Act of 2012, a comprehensive and strict privacy legislation to protect the fundamental human right of privacy of communication while ensuring free flow of information to promote innovation and growth. This comprehensive privacy law also established a National Privacy Commission that enforces and oversees it and is endowed with rulemaking power. Its long title is an act protecting individual personal information in information and communication systems in the government and the private sector, creating for this purpose a National Privacy Commission, and for other purposes. It is also known as Republic Act No. 10173. This means that all who process data of an individual must protect these information against unauthorized and unnecessary processing of personal information. After completing this orientation, you should be able to explain, first, your obligations regarding data protection, second, your responsibilities for protecting information, and lastly, what you should do in the event of data breach. Because of this, we must always remember the legal principle, ignorance of the law excuses no one. Meaning, you cannot defend your actions by claiming you didn't know the law. That is why this presentation is developed for all employees. Data privacy has always been important. It's why people put locks on filing cabinets and rent safety deposit boxes at their banks. But as more of our data becomes digitized, and we share more information online, data privacy is taking on greater importance. When data that should be kept private gets in the wrong hands, bad things can happen. A data breach at a hospital or doctor's office can, for example, put patient health information in the hands of those who might misuse it or could put any individual's personal information in the hands of criminals who could commit identity theft. The law provides additional rights to an individual or data subject. Aim to give back individuals control over their data, empowering them to know how their data is being used, by whom and why, giving them control over how their personal data is being processed and used. And with this, as an employee, you have obligations under data privacy law, and responsibilities in protecting the personal data by proper handling of data focusing on compliance with data protection regulations. And because the processing of personal data requires obligations under the DPA, employees processing personal information must adhere to data privacy principles, implement security measures and promote the rights of data subjects to avoid security incidents such as possible data loss and data breaches such as actual loss of personal data. Proper handling and protection of personal data will save you and the hospital from criminal sanctions and penalties that court can impose for violations of its provisions. Penalties composed of imprisonment ranging from 6 months up to 7 years, and fines ranging from 100,000 pesos to 5 million pesos. As a hospital employee, do you have to follow the law? If you currently works directly with patients, or currently sees or shared personal information as part of their job, or currently access any hospital systems, records, tools, and information that may contain personal information, you are required to follow the law and has responsibilities and obligations to protect the personal data you collect. Personal information refers to any information whether recorded in a material form or not, from which the identity of an individual is apparent or can be reasonably and directly ascertained by the entity holding the information or, when put together with other information would directly and certainly identify an individual. In other words, personal information is any information which can be linked to your identity, thus, making you readily identifiable. Under the DPA, there are 3 types of personal information: sensitive personal information and privileged information. Collective referred to as personal information or personal data. Personal information is the basic information to identify an individual, example are name, home or office address, or telephone or mobile number. Breach of an individual's personal information can result in imprisonment from 6 months to 5 years and a fine of 100,000 pesos up to 2 million pesos. Sensitive personal information is personal information that is not made public, as it may cause damage or discrimination to a person if it is disclosed.
The penalty is imprisonment from 1 year to 7 years and a fine from 100,000 to 5 million pesos.
Sensitive personal information has 4 categories. 1. Personal information about a person's race, ethnic origin, color, marital status, age, religious, philosophical, or political affiliations. Personal information issued by government agencies specific to a person, such as SSS, TIN, licenses, tax returns. Personal information about a person's genetic or sexual life, health, education, and proceeding for any offense committed or alleged to have been committed. 4. Personal information specifically established by executive order or law to be kept classified. Penalties imposed for breach of sensitive personal information are jail term ranging from 1 year up to 7 years and fines ranging from 100,000 pesos up to 5 million pesos. Privilege information is the personal information intended only for specified recipient. Much like sensitive personal information, the processing of privileged information is prohibited by the law. Breach of sensitive personal information and privileged information results in imprisonment from 1 to 7 years and fines from 100,000 pesos to 5 million pesos. There are personal information covered under the law that you use and access every day in the hospital. Employees who handle these sensitive personal and privilege information should have an extra level of caution taken when it is accessed or being used. These information are found in the medical records, patient hospital information systems, billing information, bills, receipts, test results, x-rays, clinic lists, labels on IV bags, patient menus, conversations, telephone note. Every day as hospital employee, you deal with processing of personal information. Processing of personal information refers to any operations performed on this personal information, whether those operations are automated or not. Data processing of personal and sensitive personal information include but not limited to collection, recording, organizing, storing, updating or modifying, retrieving, consulting, use, consolidating, blocking, erasing or destructing or disposing of data. Are you an authorized user of personal information and sensitive personal information? Ask yourself, do I need this information to do my job? There are 2 rules of thumb to answer this question. Ask yourself again. 1. Is using or disclosing this information in the best interest of the patient? If the answer is yes, then do it and process this information, otherwise do not use it. You may violate the law or you are not authorized to use the information. Rule number 2. Ask yourself, do I need to access or do I need to know this information, whether paper or electronic, to perform my job function? If the answer is yes, go ahead and access the information, otherwise don't even think about accessing the information because it is considered a violation of the law. Authorized users should be aware of the responsibilities and obligations for using personal information. Your main responsibility and obligation in Data Privacy Act is to protect and safeguard this personal information. Protecting personal information is 1. By keeping this information private. 2. By making sure this information is only accessible to the appropriate workforce and/or providers. 3. By safeguarding this information from unauthorized users. Keeping personal information contained in paper documents or hard copies private is 1. By placing the medical records or documents in a secure location. 2. By disposing through shredding of documents containing identifiable information. 3. By timely removal of documents from fax machine tray, printer tray, or copier. 4. Do not leave any documents in the hospital premises, unless authorized to do so. Keeping personal information in computers and other electronic devices private are as follows. 1. Monitors are turned away from public view. 2. Patient information is not left up on computer screen. 3. User ID, passwords are not shared. 4. Personal information is not downloaded or copied on personal storage media such as home computer or PDA. To keep personal information private, no personal information discussion in areas such as in 1. Elevators. 2. Smoke areas. 3. Public or private dining areas. 4. Employee break areas. 5. Public places like restaurants or bars. 6. Social networking sites such as Facebook, Instagram or Twitter. 7.
Hallway, 8. Even at home, employees should not discuss personal information at home. The privacy law grants people referred to as data subjects, people whose data is collected and being processed, in their capacities as patients, citizens and so forth, a range of specific data privacy rights concerning their personal information which they can exercise under particular conditions with a few exceptions. This is an overview of 8 fundamental data subject rights. 1. Right to be informed of how the hospital will use and disclose the patient health information and other information. 2. Right to access of their information. 3. Right to object or request restrictions, opt out, in the processing of their personal information, particularly in marketing and promotion activities of the hospital. 4. Right to erasure or blocking, suspend, withdraw or destruction of their personal data under certain condition. 5. Right to correct or rectify if they feel it contains incorrect or incomplete information. 6. Right to data portability or request to obtain and electronically move, copy or transfer their data in a secure manner, for further use. 7. Right to file a complaint and may claim compensation if they suffered damages due to inaccurate, incomplete, outdated, false, unlawfully obtained and unauthorized use of their data. With these data privacy rights, the law empowers the data subjects and give them control over their personal information. And we, as employees, who process their information must keep the confidentiality, integrity and availability of these information. And if not, these actions may lead to security incidents and worse, to data security breaches. What are personal data breach and security incident and its corresponding penalties? Security incident is an event or situation that affects or will likely affect data protection or compromise the availability, integrity, and confidentiality of personal data. Data breach is a security incident, that breach of security resulting to accidental or unlawful destruction, loss, or alteration of personal data, including its unauthorized disclosure or access of, or unauthorized processing of personal data. It also compromises the availability, integrity, or confidentiality of personal data. There are 3 types of personal data breach. 1. Availability breach is the loss, stolen, accidental, or unlawful destruction of personal data. 2. Integrity breach is the alteration of or unauthorized changes to personal data. 3. Confidentiality breach is the unauthorized disclosure of, or access to personal data. Here are some examples of security incidents and data breaches that could happen during data processing. And if you believe that any of the following privacy and/or data incidents happen, report it immediately. 1. Loss, damage, theft, or improper disposal of equipment, media, or papers containing personal information. 2. Accidentally sending personal information in any form to a person not authorized to view the report or sending it unencrypted. 3. Allowing an unauthorized person to use your computer or credentials to access personal information. 4. Discussing work-related information, such as a person's medical records, in a public area. 5. Accessing the private records of friends, neighbors, celebrities, etc. for casual viewing. 6. Any security situation that could compromise personal information, like virus, phishing email, social engineering attack. Consequences of data privacy incidents. Privacy and data incidents can result in inability for the hospital to fulfill its mission, and disruption of day-to-day operations. Additionally, loss of privacy threatens people and the hospital. It can result in exploitation of an individual's health or financial status, embarrassment or harm to individuals, damage to the reputation of the hospital, and loss of trust between the hospital and the public. The following videos are some of the thousands of data privacy issues, complaints, and data breach notifications received by the National Privacy Commission since the implementation of the Data Privacy Act. Few of these data privacy issues were reported on the local news.
Kung gipit sa pera, papatulan mo raw talaga ang random text messages tulad nito. Ganyan ang nangyari sa babaeng itago natin sa pangalang Maricel na nangutang ng 10,000 pesos noong December 24, 2018 sa isang online lending app.
Talaga nakakaengganyo po dahil hindi lang naman po kasi isang number yung magte-text sa'yo na you're qualified na mag-loan ng ganito.
Wala pang 30 minutos, naipasa na raw ang pera sa bank account niya. Pero bago niya nakuha ang pera, pumayag siya sa lahat ng hinihingi sa app.
Ito yung automatic na itatanong nila bago ka makahiram ng pera. Kung pwede ba nilang ma-access ang iyong contact list. Kung hindi, hindi ka makakahiram ng pera sa kanila.
Pero dahil nagkasakit ang anak, hindi raw nakabayad sa loob ng isang buwan si Maricel. Laking gulat daw niya nang tawagan ng online lending company ang mga contact niya sa cellphone. Ayon sa National Privacy Commission, posibleng nilabag ng lending company ang Data Privacy Act.
Ito hong shaming, no, yung paggamit ng personal na data ng mga tao at ipapahiya ho sila, no? Ang ating prinsipyo umiiral dito, kailangan malinaw ang dahilan ng kanilang pagpaproseso. Meron ho silang legal at lehitimong kadahilanan upang kunin ang personal na datos ng mga tao.
Iniimbestigahan na ng NPC ang mga inireklamong online lending company.
Matapos may balita ng GMA News ang tungkol sa gurong si Mark Joseph Lontok na nabiktima ng identity theft. Lumantad naman ang isa pang gurong na biktima rin daw ng taong gumamit ng pangalan ni Lontok para makapag-loan sa bangko. Nakatutok si Mark Zambrano, exclusive.
Dumulog sa NBI nitong Biyernes ang gurong si Mark Joseph Ortiz Lontok na nabiktima umano ng identity theft. Sinisingil daw si Lontok ng 800,000 piso ng 3 bangko dahil sa loan na hindi naman daw niya ginawa. Nagamit ng kawatan ang pangalan ni Lontok matapos daw niyang i-post ang kanyang PRC ID sa Facebook. Ngayon, lumantad ang isa pang guro na si Nicole, di niya tunay na pangalan. Nabiktima rin daw siya ng taong gumamit sa pangalan ni Lontok. Sideline ni Nicole ang pagre-refer ng loan client sa mga bangko. Kwento ni Nicole, October 2015 nang makuha niya bilang kliyente, ang boyfriend daw ng isa pa niyang naging kliyente na si Pamela Concepcion. Ang pangalang ginamit daw ng boyfriend ni Pamela sa mga dokumentong isinumite sa bangko, Mark Joseph Ortiz Lontok. Si Nicole na raw ang nagsilbing co-maker ng loan para maaprubahan ito. Nai-release ng bangko ang 85,000 pesos noong October 2015. Pero kasunod nito, tumawag kay Nicole ang bangko dahil nalamang peke pala ang PRC ID at iba pang ID na isinumite sa kanila.
If you believe that any of the data privacy breaches and/or data security incidents happened, please report it immediately to your data protection officer. How to report data security incident or data breaches. Upon knowledge of the data privacy breach or security incident, report it immediately to your section head or supervisor, and notify your data privacy officer through a telephone call, local 105, or send an email at dataprivacy@spcmc.com.ph for immediate notification about the incident. Prepare incident report, include the details of the incident or breach, the time, date, nature of breach, and submit to QMO. Within 24 hours, the security incident must be reported, most importantly data breach, to the DPO and submit the detailed IR to the QMO, as the law only allows 72 hours for the DPO to report to the National Privacy Commission to prevent the high impact of data breaches. The Data Privacy Act provides for criminal sanctions for violations of its provisions. The following are the offenses and corresponding penalties and sanctions. Unauthorized processing of personal information and sensitive personal information. It is committed when the processing of the personal data was done without the required consent of the data subject or unauthorized to process under the Data Privacy Act or any existing law. Imprisonment is from 1 year to 6 years and fine of 500,000 pesos to 4 million pesos. Processing of personal information and sensitive personal information for unauthorized purposes. It is committed when processing personal information for purposes not authorized by the data subject, or otherwise authorized under the Data Privacy Act or under existing laws. Imprisonment for 1 year and 6 months up to 7 years and fines of 500,000 pesos to 2 million pesos. Accessing personal information and sensitive personal information due to negligence. It is committed when a person provided access to personal information of the data subject due to his or her negligence. Its corresponding jail term is from 1 year up to 6 years and fines of 500,000 to 4 million pesos. Unauthorized access or intentional breach. It is committed when a person knowingly and unlawfully violates data confidentiality and security data systems, breaks in any way into any system where personal and sensitive personal information is stored. Imprisonment of 1 year up to 3 years and 500,000 up to 2 million pesos. Concealment of security breaches involving sensitive personal information. It is committed when a person, after having knowledge of a security breach and of the obligation to notify the National Privacy Commission, intentionally or by omission conceals the fact of such security breach. Punishment of 1 year and 6 months up to 5 years with fines of 500,000 to 1 million pesos. Malicious disclosure. Malicious disclosure is committed when a person, with malice or in bad faith, discloses unwarranted or false information relative to personal information or personal sensitive information obtained by him or her. Its jail term is from 1 year and 6 months up to 5 years, and a fine of 500,000 to 1 million pesos. Unauthorized disclosure. It is committed when any personal information controller or personal information processor or any of its officials, employees or agents, who discloses to a third party personal information not covered by malicious disclosure. Its jail term is from 1 year up to 5 years, and a fine of 500,000 to 2 million. Improper disposal of personal information and sensitive personal information. It is committed when a person knowingly or negligently disposes, discards, or abandons the personal information of an individual in an area accessible to the public or has otherwise placed the personal information of an individual in its container for trash collection. Punishment for improper disposal is 6 months to 3 years of imprisonment and fine of 100,000 to 1 million pesos. Any natural or juridical person, or other body involved in the processing of personal data who fails to comply with the Act, the IRR, or other issuances of the NPC and found to have committed a violation of the Act and its IRR may be subject to administrative, civil, and criminal liabilities. If the offender is a corporation, partnership, or any other juridical person, the penalty shall be imposed upon the responsible officers who participated in, or by their gross negligence, allowed the commission of the crime. If the offender is an alien, he or she shall be deported without further proceedings after serving the penalties prescribed. The San Pablo College's Medical Center commit to educate and promote culture that encourages privacy and security of all personal information. Remember, protect what you collect. Thank you. Congratulations. Hopefully you've been putting all the ideas in this orientation into practice right away in your daily tasks. You've just one more thing to do, answer the final multiple choice assessment to check your learning from the orientation. Check the link together with this orientation.